poppin', y'all? This is Deidre with One Shot Game, man. You already know how the motto go. You get one shot at life, but a lifetime to learn all the game you need to help improve your life. The choice is yours on which route you choose to take. Now, as I always say, you get two choices: the ability to faithfully settle in the life that has been set out for you, or the ability to pave a path towards your destiny. That choice is also up to you. So before I get into the title of my video, I want to say a big shout out to all my supporters. You guys are great. And even the ones behind the scenes, I see y'all too. So, hey, look, today is Sunday, and I am just chilling by myself, absorbing, you know what I'm saying, the scene. And I wasn't going to get into a recording mode, but then something came across my mind. So whenever I get into that space, I'll be like, look, you make sure you get it together, because maybe, you know, your insight can help someone else. So the topic of this video is going to be on the fact that a lot of times people may see you as someone that can see through them. You know what I'm saying? Can see things that they can't. And since they know that, oftentimes they'll take a lot of time pushing themselves away from you, because they know that the mask that they wear cannot be hidden in front of you. You know what I'm saying? And I think what people fail to realize is that when you are someone who sees life through a spiritual lens versus people who see life through a 3D lens, a lot of times it's hard for them to be able to understand the logic, because of the fact that they're not looking at life like that. You know what I'm saying? They're looking at life from a physical aspect, spiritual aspect. So oftentimes they'll try to, you know, downplay you, make you seem as if, you know, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, you're crazy, simply because you see life through spiritual insight, which is what has been kept hidden for so long through an illusion. So as long as people were seeing life through the illusion, you wouldn't be able to see the spiritual side of your life, which is oftentimes tailored to a lot of people's actions and how they act in life and what they're connected to and the chains that they're bonded to, because they can't free themselves from the spiritual chains that has also tailored their family and connected them to the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, because it's not, I think, ever been explained before. Like, there's no one who's ever looked at life like that. You know, there are a lot of people who believe in spirituality, but again, without actually doing the work needed inside yourself, oftentimes people take what they want to take out of spirituality because it's an invisible line of information and create it to where it fits their reality, even though they may not have done the work. They just know the power behind some of the things in spirituality. It's crazy, but it's a very real thing. So in particular with my situation is the fact that oftentimes people want to label me as what they see, you know what I'm saying, and as who they are, not as my own individual person. You know what I'm saying? So oftentimes a lot of people misunderstand me because they think that I see life through the physical 3D lens, but I don't. You know what I'm saying? I see it from a spiritual aspect, and that's just through wisdom and experience, you know. And a lot of people have certain blocks mentally, which is just the same thing as chains, that keep them stuck going in a certain way in life, to where they can't see that part of life because either they're too connected to it, they don't know how to let it go, or they don't know how to drop it. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, oftentimes the universe, God, Allah, whoever you choose to pray to, will give you a certain level of karma, like instantly, to help you open your eyes to see that that thing right there is the very thing that's stopping you from growing. But listen, you got to think like how people move around karma. People are so obsessed with thinking everything is bad supposed to happen to them. They think that bad things are supposed to happen, that you know what I'm saying, they shake it off as if it's nothing. But what if it's the opposite? What if you're not supposed to live your life expecting that bad things to happen? That's just the chains and the bonds that have been keeping you stuck for you to think like that. What if, you know what I'm saying, it's meant for you to have a positive life, you know what I'm saying, a good life, a healthy life, a life where you're not worried about everything, a life where things work out to your best benefit. I think truly, deep down inside, that's how life is supposed to be for every single human being. But if you're constantly focused on the bad things in life and how you figured out how to get over them, then it's almost as if like you can't train your mind to think that way. You know, you're still stuck in this 3D reality. So being able to open your mind to see it from a spiritual aspect, you would have to be able to take the karma as understanding like maybe that's time for me to get out of that. And it's hard, it's not easy, but over time you start to open your eyes more to how you see your life compared to how your life has been, because we've been living it for years. You know what I'm saying? It's not until you get to, I believe, a certain age that you're able to see your you know, your life and how you've been living and be able to look at it from a spiritual aspect and be able to change it. So it's almost as if like, ain't you tired, you know, of running in a circle going nowhere fast? And listen, a lot of people's families are very spiritual. You know, they have a long line of, you know, spiritual abilities, but oftentimes they were hidden because people were too afraid. People were too scared. You know what I'm saying? To let the next generation know, hey, look, you can do this if you really want to, due to the consequences and repercussions that came behind it. But you can't hide yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can't keep running from yourself as if you don't exist to cover up and live a life where you're not happy. Because your 3D physical experience, if you're depressed, sad, and unhappy, is because you're chained and bound by bondage to something that is not making you happy. And you're too afraid to let it go because of the consequences that might come with it, which is solely people who operate in an energy that's different from the spiritual world. They operate in a 3D physical energy, which means if you don't obey and you don't listen and you don't do this, I'm going to take this. As where in the spiritual world, you know what I'm saying, the rules are if you don't follow the universe's way of treating people how you want to be treated, knowing when to not engage with certain people that might put you in a danger zone. You know what I'm saying? Thou shalt not steal, whatever situation they going through. You know what I'm saying? And make a way instead of doing things that, you know, dirties your temple or, you know, hurts you and harm you in any way. That means you have to have the ability to think around it. And because that's foreign to people that are so in structural, you know, formation of how they think and operate, it comes with certain consequences that people don't be ready for. So they usually call it crazy and don't exist because it doesn't have a logical explanation tied to it. That's because it's spiritual. When you're someone who sees life through a spiritual lens, there is no logical explanation. Things happen, you know, without any logic being tied to it. That's the whole point of living in the spiritual experience. You know what I'm saying? You can have a way where you can, you know, create how you see life in your spiritual sense. And because it's not normal, it's not what everybody operates out of, a lot of people oftentimes don't understand it. They will tailor it to everything. They will try to put, you know what I'm saying, a lens to everything, even though they're not understanding fully what needs to be done to be able to let it all work out for you. You know, listen, so like I come across a lot of people that really don't believe in God for real. They really they don't, just because of how their life turned out and everything they had to go through. They usually be like, well, if it's a God, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Because what you fail to realize is that sometimes things have to happen that way. You know, because it's oftentimes tailored to a pattern of bondage that was around before you were born. And it was up to you to come through and break it. But if you can't see the pattern of recognition of where you need to break, how will you even know it's a pattern you need to break? That's the whole point of seeing in the spiritual versus being in the 3D. You know what I'm saying? Everyone has a purpose in this life. It's just, are you going to do what needs to be done to find it? you know? Otherwise, you're going to keep continuing to hit brick walls. You're going to keep continuing to be stressed out, because this 3D physical reality was man-made by someone who did everything they can to keep people's spiritual abilities intact. Because if everybody knew who they were and their spiritual abilities, their programming and how they made it work for them wouldn't work. You know what I'm saying? And everybody will continue to think they're supposed to operate and live a certain way. But if it is a whole nother map, a whole nother road that you can create spiritually, that'll give you abundance and life peace, you're going to have to create that road. And oftentimes, before people get upset when they run out of materials, you know what I'm saying? They don't have the, drive to keep getting the materials to keep paving the road. When they run out of materials, they get upset and get depressed, and then they go back over there. You feel me? Because they're upset, because they're the only one on the journey creating the road. That's what it is when you're traveling a spiritual path, and you see everything around you spiritually in a different way than most people do. And a lot of people see what you see too. They know you know, but they're too afraid to have to actually have someone expose to them the things that they know, because they've gotten too comfortable doing it. Facing yourself is probably the hardest thing for people, and that happens a lot when you see life through a spiritual sense. It's having to face yourself, and because you have ran so far away from it, you oftentimes get upset, you get mad, or you get frustrated because you never understood or realized that you would have to face yourself at some point. You know what I'm saying? And it goes for everyone. But now, since this new energy is penetrating the planet, which is something that no one has any control over, it started a while ago and is getting stronger, is the fact that people are looking at life differently. They're seeing it in a different version. And the more that you break free from the chains of, your spiritual legacy or bondage, is how you free your mind up to be able to get in touch with your physical abilities and being able to see the world in a spiritual way, which allows you to break free from things that were meant to keep you trapped. And then a lot of people end up, passing away ugly, mean, hurtful, not actually living the life they wanted, because your spiritual chains kept you bonded to a certain way of life, knowing that you had way more power than you ever thought you had. It's just, are you going to do what it takes to find it? You know what I'm saying? So again, it takes a lot of strength inside yourself to build yourself up to understand that as you are someone who's developed the ability to see in the spiritual world, a lot of people haven't got there yet. So they'll disown you. They'll make you feel more alone than you ever felt in your life. You know what I'm saying? They'll detach from you. They'll throw salt on your name. You know what I'm saying? They make you, paint you as a bad person, continue to paint you in the bondage of your ancestors before you. They'll do everything they can to label you with what you've always been labeled with, just due to your bloodline. You know what I'm saying? And to be able to live in the spiritual sense, it's a lot of things that you have to do that's not normal to be able to keep yourself intact. Because if you don't, you're gonna fall victim, to this physical reality, and that's going to cripple you more, especially if you've been blessed with the ability to see through spiritual eyes. It's not something you asked for, it's something you're given, it's something you earned, and it comes with a lot. It's not easy, you know what I'm saying? And the path usually takes a long time until you get to a space where you're able to understand exactly what's going on, because you're going to be in a state of confusion for a little bit. You're going to feel as if, you know what I'm saying, you don't belong on this planet for a little bit of time. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be certain things that happen that you can't quite explain to a 3D person, because they're going to think you're crazy. But it's what comes with spirituality, and there are people that know that. It's just usually we don't see those people. They're hidden. They run systems behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? But they know exactly what they're looking for when it comes to energy. That's why if you're someone that's growing inside yourself and your energy is elevating, you'll be targeted. You know what I'm saying? And usually when you're growing inside yourself, oftentimes they put you against someone that is backwards, but also has the energy to elevate. But because they see life differently, it's going against everything that you are. You feel me? And it's basically your old life up against you. You know what I'm saying? And both of y'all got strong energies, but you have to be willing to, you know, fight that old version of yourself to be able to get ahead. And I think that's the hardest part to balance out, because people know their energy, they know their frequency, they know their power, but they don't correctly understand what they're doing in their life to get it to where it balances out to where they don't feel that unfulfilling feeling. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, but it's a real thing, and it actually truly exists when you're someone that can see spiritually. A lot of people elevate their energy, but they're not looking at it from a spiritual aspect. They're looking at it from a 3D aspect, and everything they learned in life, they usually amplify it to keep getting more of what they want until, like I said, the universe hits you with karma, because that's not the way that you're supposed to go. You're supposed to build your own lane for yourself. You can't keep, you know, raising your spiritual elevation, but you keep doing the same thing you've been doing since you've been 17, 18. You know what I'm saying? You have to be willing to understand it's going to come with changes. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to do things differently. And if you don't, then karma's going to hit you, and that's going to keep your energy at a certain level. And then you're going to be probably irritated, mad, or jealous at someone who's raising their frequency because you don't quite know or understand what you need to do. Because, again, like I said, people who are so used to trauma and so used to, like, bad things happening to them, which is a lot of people who had to raise themselves, a lot of people who grew up in, like, foster care. Man, I'm always around those type of people, you know what I'm saying, who basically figured out a way to operate in life on their own. But it may not be necessarily the best choices for themselves, but they don't know no other way. And they think that, you know what I'm saying, they're elevating their energy because they're getting attention, but it's not the right attention. You know what I'm saying? And again, you have to be willing to go on your own path and own journey to figure that out. When I feel as if it's too much energy around me going the wrong way, I gotta get out of there. I gotta go my own way. You know what I'm saying? Because I see what's happening. It's the ability to take my energy and morph it with their energy to where you don't know the difference between the two. And that's confusing, because when you're moving in a certain way to elevate your energy, you gotta move in a certain way, which means all the things I've talked about doing in the past, I no longer do those things. And so my energy elevates and it grows. Now, I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying, I'm talking down on those people or they're less. No, that's not the case. But oftentimes people who don't listen to their own spiritual path is because they're either trying to find it or they're chasing after someone thinking that they're leading them to the lake, when in reality they might actually be leading them into a ditch. You know what I'm saying? You got to really follow your own path. But if you don't know how to do it, then you're never going to understand how to lead your path. You're going to always think that what you've been doing is working, but you keep doing it and you're trying to figure out why it's not working, because it's a certain path you have to follow. And when you are someone that sees life through the spiritual lens, you understand the path you have to follow. You can't get off. You can't derail. You can't take an alternate route. You can't do what other people are doing, because you know deep down inside it's not going to work. You just have to wait for the call from the universe that'll let you know which direction to go next. You know what I'm saying? And it'll be a very strong thought in your head that'll tell you, go this way, do this. You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes there are things that happen unexpectedly, but you'll be so joyous to understand or open up the door that you go towards it, and that's where you're supposed to be going. But you gotta wait sometimes, because spiritual lenses sometimes have to unlock spiritual doors that were closed due to the physical aspect of the 3D thinking, you know. And again, it's just what comes with it. You gotta understand and play your position. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here, you feel me, to shack up. I'm not here to have basic conversation. I'm not here to be buddy-buddy. I'm not here to, hey, give me this, give me that. I'm not here to use you to get what. I'm not here for none of that. I'm here to strictly learn what I need to learn to be able to advance in my spiritual journey. And oftentimes a lot of people tend to isolate from you because they know that you're here on a different journey. You're not on the same one they're playing, because the game they playing is everybody is for everybody. Let's play nice and be cordial, see who got what, who got this, who got that. Oh, they need this, they need that. That means I can get something from you, get something from me. No, you know what I'm saying? I don't need anything from anyone, and I'm not giving out anything to anyone. You know what I'm saying? Because again, like I said, the way our life has operated is on the niceness and the exchange of goods, basically like the old way of thinking, you know. But we just found out a clever way to understand how to maneuver with it. So, you know, when a lot of people are advancing into being able to see with a spiritual lens, a lot of people have already been looking at life from a spiritual lens. It's just it becomes a competition when people are afraid to take the next step to open up a door that they're not yet comfortable with opening. So they'll make sure everyone gets stuck right at that level so that they don't surpass them until, I guess, they're ready to, I don't know, pass the level or see through that lens so they can open up the door. It's a lot of hard work. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of self-reconstruction. And oftentimes we've been taught to blame it on someone else for our own self-reconstruction, but that's not how it works. You got to be willing to take accountability and look at your life and admit and be like, hey, no, this ain't cool. I'm good. Not just settle, you know, because when you settle, you're still uncomfortable. That means that spiritual door that you keep trying to stick the key in and unlock ain't going to open. It's going to stay closed, and you're going to stay stuck going nowhere fast. And listen, life's just too short for that. So listen, if you don't know what it is, I just told you. Please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe.